Welcome back to the Dr. Jonette channel. Today we are making lemon streusel blueberry coffee cake. Make sure you watch all the way to the end because I've talked a lot about the neuronutrition of blueberries, but today we are going to talk about the neuronutrition of lemons. That's right, lemons are good for your brain, and you aren't going to want to miss all the ways that lemon not only can boost your immune system, but also help your brain and prevent possibly cognitive decline, in addition to helping you regulate your blood sugar. So let's get baking. I'm going to start here by adding some salt to my flour. I actually use salted butter, so I'm only adding about 1/4 teaspoon of salt to the flour. I use mostly salted butter when I bake. A stick of butter has about 1/4 teaspoon of salt, so if you use unsalted butter, you're going to want to add about 1/2 teaspoon of salt to your flour. I'm going to set that aside, and in this bowl I am adding 1/4 cup of sugar, brown sugar, 1/4 cup of, the brown sugar was packed, 1/4 cup of white sugar, and I'm adding a stick of melted butter. And I'm adding the lemon on top of that actually, rather than right into the sugar. That's about 1 teaspoon there. And the lemon zest from 1/2 of a lemon. I like to use a microplane to zest my lemon rather than a grater, but if you don't have a microplane, a grater works as well. I'm going to stir that together, and then I'm going to add my flour, and this will be the streusel topping for our lemon blueberry cake. I like a lot of streusel topping on top of my cake, so I make a fair amount of the streusel topping. You're going to want to just stir this together kind of lightly because you want it to kind of come together to form crumbs that you're going to sprinkle on top of your cake. We're going to set this aside then, and I'll preheat the preheat button on the oven, and we're going to go ahead and make our lemon blueberry cake next, coffee cake next. So I've got our oven preheating, and I'm going to go ahead and we're going to make the cake part for the lemon streusel coffee cake. I've added a stick of butter to my mixing bowl here, and to that butter I'm adding 1 cup of white sugar. I'm going to take my mixer, and you could do this in a stand mixer. I'm using the hand mixer because it's easier to see the process. And then next I'm going to add 2 large eggs, one at a time, and I will scrape down the bowl after the addition of each egg. We're going to mix them in. And I'm going to just set this aside because I want to add my baking powder, baking soda, and salt to my flour. I'm adding, again, 1/2 teaspoon of salt. If you use unsalted butter, I'm sorry, 1/4 teaspoon of salt. If you used unsalted butter, you'd want to add 1/2 teaspoon of salt. A teaspoon of baking soda, and a teaspoon of baking powder. mix that all in to the flour. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm adding a teaspoon of vanilla to my batter, and I'm adding a tablespoon of fresh lemon juice. And I'm going to mix that all in. We'll scrape our bowl. And let's talk about our neuro-nutrition nugget. For lemons. Lemons have a number of important properties. Most of us realize that or think about lemons as having a lot of vitamin C, which is true. They do have a lot of vitamin C, and vitamin C has some antioxidant properties, but it also has some good properties for boosting our immune system and helping us fight colds and viruses during the winter season. So they're good, it's great for that, and it also has what's called polyphenols. Polyphenols are a type of antioxidant that are important for protecting our brain cells against oxidative damage, oxidative stress. It helps keep our brain cells healthy as well as other cells in our body. And when our brain cells are healthy, protected against oxidative stress and inflammation within our brain, they are able to function better and live longer. When our cells are destroyed by oxidative stress, we are setting up a process within our brain that may lead to cognitive decline, Alzheimer's, dementia, and other neurodegenerative type diseases. So incorporating good foods into our diet that are high in antioxidants. Blueberries, I've talked a lot about blueberries. Blueberries are another food that's exceptionally good for antioxidants. It has a different type of antioxidants. The antioxidants in blueberries are flavonoids. The ones in here are in lemons are phenols. The other good thing that phenols do for our brain and our body is it helps us regulate our blood sugar, which may mean that it also may help us lose weight. By helping our insulin be able to work better and to be able to decrease what's called insulin resistance. In other words, our insulin can then better utilize our blood sugar and utilize the sugar in our food and may actually help us lose weight. So there's a number of reasons to incorporate lemons into your diet. You can use it in things like what we're using it for today, which is our lemon streusel coffee cake, or use it in tea, use it in drinks, put it in salad dressings, just so many ways to incorporate lemons into your diet. Give your body give your immune system a boost, your brain a boost, and your body a boost as well. So the next part of the cake is we are going to alternate our sour cream with our flour. Add about a third of the flour, a third of the sour cream, the flour, the sour cream, and between each addition, we are going to mix it into our batter here. I'm just trying to get a little bit of that. So I've got a third of the flour in there. I'm adding a third of the sour cream now, and we'll mix that in. A third more of our flour. So in other words, about half of what's left in the bowl. And mix that in. Half of what's left of our sour cream, or thereabouts. And after that second third, I like to go ahead and just Give the sides of the bowl a good scrape before that final 1/3 gets added. I'll add the final 1/3 of the flour. The final 1/3 of the sour cream. To go off to one side for whatever reason, not sure why. There, we've added all of our flour and sour cream to our cake here. I'm just trying to get off make sure I get all that flour, sour cream off of my spatula. And the last part of the cake is adding the delicious blueberries to the batter. One of the problems that happens with fruit when we add it to cake batter is it likes to sink to the bottom of the cake pan. And then we get lots of fruit on the bottom and not so much fruit distributed throughout the cake. One of the tricks, this is my simple is smart tip. One of the tricks that we can do is we can lightly flour the fruit. In this case, I've lightly floured the blueberries. I've just tossed them lightly with about a tablespoon of all-purpose flour before I add them to the cake. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm not going to beat them in. I'm going to just gently fold them into the batter before I add the batter to my cake pan. That's 2 cups of blueberries that I'm folding into the batter here. For your baking pan, you could use a 9 by 9 inch square cake pan. You could use a round 9 inch round cake pan, or you could use what I'm using today, which is the 8 by 11 inch rectangular cake pan. Whichever one you decide to use, I recommend that you put a parchment sling in the bottom of the cake pan. It makes it so much easier to get the cake out of the pan. I like to just spray the bottom of the cake pan lightly with a non-stick spray and then gently press parchment paper down into the pan so that it's kind of almost lightly adherent or stuck to the bottom of the pan. And then I give it another spray with my non-stick spray. And if you don't want any non-stick spray on your cake, you could just put it on underneath the parchment paper to help it not stick to the bottom of your pan, and then not spray any on top of it. But I go ahead and spray some on top of it. And then you want to just add your blueberry coffee cake to the cake pan. And I use fresh blueberries. If you use frozen blueberries, don't let them thaw because they will get mushy, and they will, when you mix them into the batter, they will add extra moisture to the batter. And I've actually never used frozen blueberries for this recipe, but I think you could use frozen blueberries. Just use them frozen so that they stay intact in the batter until they are in the oven, and then they will defrost, of course, and bake right into the batter. So they should be fine for using in this recipe. And I'm going to spread the batter around here. And then we're going to add our lemon streusel topping to the batter. So what I like to do is I kind of like chunks of streusel on my coffee cake. So I will take and kind of squeeze the streusel topping together. As you can see here, there's a nice generous amount of streusel. If you don't like so much streusel on your coffee cake, you could cut the recipe by 1/3 or even by 1/2 if that looks like too much for you. Still bake it the same at 350 degrees for about 40 to 50 minutes, around 40 minutes. I usually check the cake to make sure that the toothpick comes out clean. If the top starts to get a little bit too brown, you can cover it with a little aluminum foil. And let's put that in the oven, and we'll be back when it's baked. Our lemon coffee cake is done and ready to come out of the oven. Okay, let's cut a piece and give it a taste. You can see there's lots of blueberries. Pretty much all the way through the cake. You can see they're all the way up to the top, and in fact, when you look down at the cake, you can see some blueberries poking through the streusel crust as well. That is super moist. Just the right amount of streusel on top, hint of lemon, delicious. Enjoy. Also, thank you for clicking that like button as well as subscribing to Dr. Jonette channel. Please sign up for notifications so that you don't miss any of our neuroscience videos, our delicious, healthy, good for you recipes, gardening tips, and so much more. Also, thank you for going to my website at growwithdrjonette.com and exploring all of the information there for you, everywhere from health to longevity to recipes to gardening, organic gardening, and so many great ideas for how you can have a long, healthy, and productive life. See you next time on the Dr. Jonette channel.